Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We'll begin today by the board meeting as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Chair, if you would please convene the Housing Authority Board.
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority.
Thank you. You're now meeting as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. Joining you online is Housing Commissioner Ann Leenstra. Ann, are you there?
I'm aboard.
Wonderful. Good morning, Ann. Thank you. This is a advisory board and commission appointment request. And so Mayor Nick will read it, but Tony Carter, Interim Director of the Housing, Executive Director of the Housing Authority is here if you have any questions. Go ahead, Tony. This Tony.
The Housing Authority Board, staffed by the Housing Authority of Clackamas County, currently has 4 openings on their commission due to term expirations and resignations. During a recruitment process, 4 applications were received, 4 are recommended for appointment. Those recommendations are Samantha Thiesing, Rebecca Stavenhord, Joseph Briglio, and Andrea Smith to first terms.
Ann Leenstra, I will entertain a motion from you.
I move we accept those nominations.
Second.
Is that correct?
Yes, Ann Leenstra has moved that we approve Samantha Thiesling, Rebecca Stavenjord, Joseph Briglio, and Andrea Smith to the Housing Authority Board, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? I apologize if I did not pronounce your names correctly. Any further discussion on this? Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Leenstra,
Aye.
Commissioner Shull,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Ann, thank you very much for coming today, and Tony as well.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Chair, would you now convene as the Development Agency Board?
I will recess as a Housing Authority and convene as the Development Agency.
You're now meeting as the Development Agency Board of Clackamas County. This is a request for a consent agenda for the Development Agency. Item 1, approval of a resolution authorizing a debt issuance to finance new projects in the North Clackamas Revitalization Area. Anticipated issuance is $10 million with a 10-year term. Funding is through tax increment financing. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson is the Director of Transportation and Development. David Queener is the Development Agency Manager. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt, here today to talk to you. It's a little out of form and character, but we thought it was important because this is a request for consent request. But we thought it was important to have an opportunity to talk to you about this if you had questions. Essentially, Administrator Schmidt covered the details. We're looking to issue a bond. It's common practice in our development agency and our urban renewal authorities. Essentially, this is a $10 million bond focused on 2 primary projects that are in there, and it's in your materials. One is Linwood Avenue improvements. The second is Monroe Street improvements. Project descriptions are there, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about those particular items. A couple things I want to share with the board. One, we've been in detailed discussions with our finance group here within Clackamas County. They've been a part of these dialogues. We've met with council, we've met with bond counsel, and external consultation in developing these. The number sounds really even, and that's important. A couple of things. We are strategic about these bond placements. One, we look at what the debt service is on an annual basis. We try to minimize the debt and use available funds. It's simple math. You can do it on your own. You see the projects equate to about $14 million. We're asking for 10. We have money available there to cover that gap. Secondly, we look at a 10-year term versus longer terms because it decreases the debt service payment on an annual basis. We try to keep that number as low as we can. We also still have increment coming in from this district, which equates to about $4 to $5 million a year. So we're able to not only pay adequately, more than adequately cover the debt service on this particular bond, but also do other programs we are implementing within the area. The North Clackamas Revitalization Area has a focus on capital construction, but also some programmatic elements to stabilize housing, which Dave and Ken Edel from his shop have been implementing for quite some time now. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about this particular request at this time.
Dan, explain again, how are you making the payments on the debt?
So,
And how much are those payments per year?
Okay, excellent questions. Actually, that's my note here at the top.
I figured you knew the answer to that.
And so, a couple things. One, as all of you know, urban renewal areas are adopted. Those establishes an urban renewal levy. There's tax increment financing that is secured through that process. So there's no general fund associated with it. So revenue comes in on an annual basis to the development agency, and those are the funds, what we call the increment, that will go forward to pay the debt service. The annual debt service on this particular bond of $10 million is about $1 million a year, roughly.
And so you have $1 million a year coming in from tax increment financing.
Our increment runs between about almost $5 million annually.
Annually, and is that taxing district due to expire? Or is that ongoing?
Well, it's ongoing until there's a maximum indebtedness established for these particular areas, and when that maximum indebtedness is close to or is hit, that is when the levy terminates, and then that additional assessed value goes back all on the tax rolls.
Okay. Oh, we have two commissioners in the queue, Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner Scholl.
Dan, so could you, I have a couple questions, so if you, I want to answer this one right up front so we know. On behalf of the Development Agency, which is really, has its own autonomy, what's the mission for the district?
Well, the fundamental mission of any urban, correct me if
Well,
I'm
I mean,
wrong.
this district.
Oh, well, this district is a little bit different than a lot of districts we have. One of which is, for like the Clackamas Town Center had a focus on commercial expansion and job creation. The industrial area had kind of a similar mission. This particular area, or this particular district, one of the primary focuses, in all honesty, was stabilization of the housing in that particular area and provision of public services. So, one of the primary projects that we did for this particular area was, and as with all urban renewal districts, removing blighting influences. But one of the primary initial projects we did in this particular area was a sewer expansion out there, because we had houses that were on septic systems that were failing. People were having to vacate those houses because there was no alternative, because the lot sizes are smaller. So we worked collaboratively with Water Environment Services to not only do public line extensions, we also did a program for those of lesser means to do connections, et cetera. And we continue to do that work as well.
Okay, I just want to get that on the table, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
So where I'm going with this is twofold. Number one is, will this stretch of Linwood Avenue have to be dug up in the future for any connections for sewer? Because it would be a shame if that was the case, right? Because that was one of the missions, and I don't really recall that we had a goal or an emphasis on adding road or sidewalk improvements. Granted, they're needed. I'm not going to dismiss that. And my concern about the maximum indebtedness or anything else about this is, if not there, then as far as assessed value and all the other things, then where should we be investing? I mean, my guess is, not my guess, my point is, are we maximizing the dollars available and getting the most amount of utilization of it? I don't want to see the streets dug up.
Yeah, no, and you asked, that was a great question. You asked it, I think, the last time we were looking there for design, and I emailed you. I follow up with Ken Edel. A large majority of those houses already have sewer connections. I think Linwood, we actually put a sewer line down that.
Yeah, and wherever, if there are any properties there that are on septic that haven't connected yet, we will be stubbing out beyond the sidewalk to those houses. So if and when they choose to connect, the infrastructure is there. So we aren't going to be tearing out anything
The road.
in the future. We're accounting for that
Okay.
with the project.
So, yeah, okay, well, thank you. And my other point is really about, because as I can see, there's some need for some improvements along the 82nd Avenue, in that part of the district, right, where that sits. And there's some dilapidated properties that we own. And there's also some parcels that we own that are, sitting there empty, vacant. So I'm just kind of curious as to, what the plan is for the district. We haven't had any kind of a discussion about that. And being it's the only one that's active, I think it's long overdue for a work session really on the future of that district and accomplishing our goal, basically, to increase assessed value.
We're here at the will of the board. You guys want to talk about it, we'll come back and we'll talk about it. I mean, the district has been very successful. It has provided fundamental infrastructure. A lot of our districts focus on infrastructure, in all honesty. It's one of those primary, not only stabilization tools that we have for stabilizing the housing market, not market, but the housing stock out there. It also promotes business and commercial expansion with capacity and things of that nature. But we'd be happy to have a discussion with the Board of County Commissioners around the North Clackamas revitalization area.
I would suggest that we actually do so with everyone's fully aware of our mission,
Yeah.
again, and how we're accomplishing it before we hit maximum indebtedness.
No problem.
Further? I finished, Commissioner
Yep,
Savas?
thank
Yeah.
you.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, good morning. Commissioner Savas, his question covered some of the things I was concerned about in regards to the effect on housing affordability of these two new projects. And I'd be interested to know, when you arrived at the selection of these two projects, are they, in your opinion, going to have the most positive effect on housing affordability in the urban renewal district? So the people listening to this will know that that selection process was concerned about housing affordability.
And I would say definitely, that is always a consideration out there when we do select a road project, an infrastructure project. It isn't to completely change the area. It's really about getting the infrastructure in place to allow the folks that live there better access to goods and services. It's not about going in and changing the area at all. And that's why we're very selective about where we're putting in these improvements. A lot of the residential areas, we're going to go in there and improve drainage, for example, but we're not going to go in there and retrofit the entire roadway because that does change the character of that neighborhood. So these are very strategic investments.
So these investments, in your opinion, once complete, will result in the area being more attractive to developers to build free market housing in the area?
For those lots that are vacant or underdeveloped, I believe it would. I also want to add the fact that, one, these are some of our most challenging projects, in all honesty. It isn't developing what we call greenfield, which is basically, it's a undeveloped area where you're going to go out and build infrastructure and a road. And so some of the points that Dave stated are important. And so it's providing better infrastructure, better drainage, because those things are limiting factors, and especially in this particular area, the drainage is a big deal. Provides safer circulation for the citizens that use the area, provides enhanced opportunities for circulation, be it via car, pedestrians, bicycles, things of that nature.
And these two projects will also result in a increased aesthetic appeal to the area, like your project did on Sunnyside Road between I-205 and 82nd?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
good.
and also
Thank you.
just to point out too, we minimize the width of these roads to the extent possible so that we're not impacting those adjacent properties. So for the most part, there's very little right-of-way that we're needing. On these projects, we're able to fit things within the existing right-of-way, so.
To reduce the impacts to the residences that are
Right.
already there.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Any further questions or discussions? Seeing no objections to this moving forward, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so this will be on your consent agenda for this Thursday's business meeting. Thank you. Chair, would you now convene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as a development agency and convene as a Board of County Commissioners.
All right, we'll do the consent agenda for the Board of Commissioners, and then we'll loop back to the NCPRD Board. So this is request for consent agenda for regular Clackamas County. First up, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of a board order authorizing the purchase of one 2023 Freightliner truck with a Columbia dump body from Premier Truck Group through a State of Oregon cooperative contract. Total purchase order value is $257,302. Funding is through the County Road Fund. No county general funds are involved. Welcome back, Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development.
Thank you. I got 30 more steps in there just by looping back around. Thank you so much. Back here in front of a discussion for a request for consent. Hey, this is a $250,000 truck. One, they're the backbone of our operation. If you've been down to transportation maintenance, you know a lot of our operation deals with moving big things, plowing roads. This is one of those vehicles. You'll also note that you don't see very many of these. We have a replacement schedule for these, and so basically we're ensuring they're replaced on a general schedule to make sure the entirety of the fleet is adequate and sufficient to meet the needs of the citizens of Clackamas County. I will also identify the fact that it was budgeted. It was in the budget that we put forward for capital repair and replacement through the budget process for this fiscal year. So beyond that, we're using a cooperative agreement to secure the truck. the vehicle in question, the dump truck, and I'd be happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
What tonnage is this truck?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me something crazy
Forget it.
like
Any
that.
other questions or comments?
A lot of tonnage.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Shaw.
Dan, was this Freightliner built locally? Did it employ local citizens? 'Cause I know they got a Freightliner plant in Portland.
Freightliner was also bought out by Volvo.
Yeah, well, everybody's bought out by somebody these days, but anyway, just curious if we could also say that this also provided jobs.
I think that's easy to say that.
Yeah.
Where exactly the vehicle was built, I couldn't tell you, but I
Okay,
will tell you the
that's fine.
fact that it's through a cooperative agreement through the state of Oregon. And so basically it's being purchased locally, which then would have a direct impact on
Yeah,
the job.
good, okay,
Yep.
good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment updating program language and increasing funding for fiscal year 2023 of the intergovernmental agreement from the Oregon Health Authority for financing public health services. The amendment value is $289,502.67. The fiscal year agreement total value is increased to $5,318,585.67. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved. Adam Brown is Deputy Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. Adam Brown here. The amendment to this revenue agreement will fund public health-related programs and services for our community carried out by the Public Health Division. This includes HIV prevention, tobacco prevention and education, the WIC program, school-based health centers, and communicable disease control programs. These activities help ensure safe, secure, and healthy communities.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of an intergovernmental agreement from the Oregon Department of Human Services to continue the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Employment and Training Program. Agreement value is $151,065.72 for 1 year. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services with matching funds through Child, Family, Community Connections Division, fund balance of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and $100,000 in budgeted county general funds.
Thank you. The amendment to this revenue agreement will fund workforce services for our community carried out by the CFC division. Workforce programming, including the SNAP Employment and Training Program, helps participants gain skills and find work that leads to self-sufficiency. It prioritizes second chance individuals, those exiting incarceration, and individuals in substance use disorder recovery programs. This valuable program leads to outcomes like the story of the crane operator working on the courthouse construction project that you heard about a couple of weeks ago.
Comments, questions? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of an amendment to increase funding for contractor wages through an intergovernmental agreement from the Oregon Department of Education for the Healthy Families Oregon Program. Amendment value is $132,438.60. Agreement value is increased to $2,102,029.86 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Education. No county general funds are involved.
So the amendment to this revenue agreement funds increased wages for individuals providing home visiting services administered by CFCC. You all know about the wage pressures folks are facing. CFCC works with a local nonprofit, Clackamas County Children's Commission, to carry out Healthy Families Oregon programming, which is an evidence-based voluntary home visiting program that contributes to economic prosperity by preventing child abuse and neglect, promoting healthy child development, helping parents to prepare children for kindergarten, and improving family self-sufficiency.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 4, approval of an amendment increasing funding and modifying terms of an intergovernmental agreement from the Oregon Department of Education to provide Clackamas Early Learning Hub coordination and support and Raise Up Oregon strategic planning. The amendment value is $67,210.10. The total agreement value is increased to $1,820,472.10 for 2 years. No county general funds are involved.
So the 2013 legislature authorized the creation of 16 regional community-based early learning hubs to make support available, accessible, and effective for children and families, particularly those in underserved communities. The Children, Family, and Community Connections Division has served as the backbone organization for the Clackamas Early Learning Hub since that time in 2013.
Questions or comments?
I have
Yeah, go ahead, Martha.
Question. So where is our major early learning hub here in Clackamas? Is it the Gladstone area? Is it mostly work with the ESD? Or?
I'm not sure about the physical location. I could connect with Adam Freer, the
Okay.
division director,
Yeah.
and follow up with you about that.
Yeah, that would be great. And when you talk about, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So you're talking about coordinating it with other early learning hubs across the state?
Yeah, for the continuity of the programs and services across the state, right? This is a program administered by the state, so they outline the program requirements,
Okay.
and then we administer that program consistent with how it's designed at the state level.
Well, thank you for that, and I apologize for my ignorance. I should be on top of this more. But yeah, if I can just find out a little bit more about that infrastructure, that'd be great.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you. I'm interested in knowing more about what Raise Up Oregon, when those listening sessions, that funding that will be provided for that, and what will the outcome be for that? And if you don't know today, I'm happy to talk to Adam.
Yeah,
about
I
it.
can get you more information about the intended objectives,
Yeah.
but of course, community engagement, soliciting feedback and input from our stakeholders is always part of our program development and continuous process improvement. So in this case, they're holding these listening sessions, and I can get more information from Adam about specifically the intended outcomes of that effort here.
That'd be great. Often it's really helpful to be sort of a fly on the wall during those and just listen in. If that's an opportunity, I would really like to take it. And just in response to Commissioner Schrader's question, the Early Learning Hub is a coordinating body with many different professionals that are key influencers and stakeholders in our community. They are all listed on our website, and when I presented at the National Association of Counties on childcare deserts, one of the unique aspects for coordinating bodies is that a local government, being the coordinating agency, the one that's pulling people together. And so that's a real asset for us in Clackamas County. I just wanted to plug our system here for that.
Are you finished?
Yep.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Schrader, you're up.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sonia. I really appreciate it. But then so they're not direct service deliveries, they're directors of policy? I guess I'm
there
just
are
trying to
some.
figure out
Yeah.
what's their outcomes? What do they do tangibly that we're like seeing, or, like a capacity building, like physical and with workforce? That's the kind of questions I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at, yeah.
We can talk about it. I'm Googling it
Okay,
right
yeah,
now.
you're right.
You
I'm
look
sorry,
look
Chair.
at
I
who those
won't
folks are.
belabor
It's-
this now. Okay.
Thank you
Very
very much.
impressive.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Well, I just say that the Earning Learning Hub program that I saw at Gladstone on Portland Avenue,
Right.
that we've toured several times, and I'm very fond of that. That's a fantastic program, and they also had other services. I don't know if it's still as robust as it was, but I do know that, well, my question is more centered around, is this the only one in Gladstone? Because, people transporting or being able to travel or have transit or being able to connect to these places. So mine would be, is there one, is there two, is there three? I certainly know that the demographics in Gladstone, there's a lot of poverty in that area. It's just down the street from the Econo Lodge Hotel. Frankly, it's an area that's really impoverished. So being close to and having access to that is important. So I just don't want to know where they are and seeing if they are strategically located in impoverished areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I can follow up about that. And I know, this is helping to align resources, coordinate effort, and the geographical distribution and geographic equity in terms of being able to access programs and services is always one of the considerations in our program design efforts. So I'll definitely have the division follow up with more information about that.
Thank you. Seeing no objections,
Item 5, approval of a professional service agreement from Clackamas Workforce Partnership to coordinate expungement clinics for the Clean Slate Clackamas project. Agreement value is $30,000 for 10 months, funded through Clackamas Workforce Partnership. No county general funds are involved.
So this revenue agreement funds Clean Slate Clackamas coordination activities to be carried out by Children, Families, and Community Connections. These expungement clinics, which involve the participation of many system partners, increase access to justice and enhance self-sufficiency by reducing barriers to employment, housing, and education. The clinics have been hosted by CFCC in partnership with Clackamas Workforce Partnership on a pilot basis, and based on their success, CWP is funding their continuation, including CFC holding this coordination effort.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 6, approval of an amendment extending duration and increasing funding of an intergovernmental agreement to Clackamas County Circuit Court to continue protective order and support services. Amendment value is $6,940 for 1 month. Agreement value is increased to $242,355 for 3 years and 1 month. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved.
So this revenue amendment adds bridge funding to CFCC to continue the protective order and support services pending the next grant award agreement. This is part of the Office of Violence Against Women's Improving Criminal Justice Response Project grant, which is awarded to the Clackamas County Circuit Court. Funding comes to CFCC for an abuse prevention application position that is stationed at a Safe Place Family Justice Center to provide assistance to petitioners for domestic violence protection and resources for sexual assault, stalking, and elder abuse.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections. Thank you.
Item 7, approval of a grant agreement from the Oregon Department of Transportation for the Mount Hood Express operations. Grant value is $206,350 for 2 years. Funding is through the Federal Transit Administration. No county general funds are involved.
So this is another allocation of resources for COVID-related wage pressures. So this provides funding for increased operating expenses for the Mount Hood Express program, including increased contract costs due to driver shortages. Mount Hood Express provides public transit bus service between the City of Sandy, Government Camp, and Timberline, along with other locations in the Mount Hood area, increasing access to employment, recreation, shopping, and medical services for our community.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 8, approval of a non-federal subrecipient grant agreement to Zor Evangelical Lutheran Church for extreme weather and smoke shelter services. Grant value is $55,005. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Housing and Community Services, and $5,050 in budgeted county general funds.
This agreement will allow this community partner to provide critical extreme weather shelter services, including during extreme cold, heat, or poor air quality due to wildfire smoke. This increases the county's ability to provide for the safety and well-being of unhoused residents when conditions outside are at their worst.
Where is Zor Evangelical Lutheran located?
It's in Canby.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
It's right on the main street. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, Commissioner Scholl?
Does this Zor facility offer overnight
Yeah.
shelter?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 9, approval of a change order with Civil Works Northwest due to County Road Department requirements for the 10 Eck Road sidewalk improvements adjacent to the Sandy Health Center. Change order value is $62,035. Total contract value is now $190,135. Funding is through Community Development Block Grant Funds and Health Centers Division Fund Balance. No county general funds are involved.
So this change order will allow the county to complete 10 Eck Road right-of-way improvements required as part of the construction of the new Sandy Health Clinic that is set to open this coming Monday. The work includes a sidewalk, curb, asphalt removal, and overlay restriping, installation of a fire hydrant, and a number of other elements. As part of the inspection process for work that had been completed, it was discovered that incorrect survey information had resulted in site plans from the architect that did not meet relevant standards. So some of the work completed to those plans on our roadway by construction contractor Civil Works Northwest did not pass inspection. This change order is critical because both the City of Sandy Building Inspector and the County Roads Department have allowed a temporary certificate of occupancy for the clinic with the understanding that the right-of-way issues will be resolved. H3S is still reviewing what led to the utilization of the incorrect survey information and has consulted with County Council to ensure that county interests are protected as part of the contract for the site plan development services.
Commissioner Savas is in the queue. I can anticipate
Yeah,
maybe some questions.
I'm not going to be against this per se, but I I'm at a point where I really want to see a spreadsheet of every change order on this project. We were told over and over again, this would be the last one, this would be the last one, this would be the last one, and they continue to flow in. I need to understand how this is, where the breakdown is, because we just can't have projects like this. We just can't be, and I understand it's CDBG money, I get that, but it's the point of the matter. If we have a reputation out there of just saying, or not having the right relationships, or whatever it may be with the city of Sandy, or whether it's the contractor or whatever, but I lost count how many change orders there have been on this project.
Yeah, and Commissioner Savas, I certainly share your concern. This portion of the work, while it's the product of the project we've undertaken to redo the clinic itself, it is separate work completed by a separate contractor. But to your point, when staff came to me and said, we were out there with County Roads, the construction contractor, and we all determined that, the grade of the asphalt, the curb height didn't meet inspection standards. We have to get those things fixed. I think you recognize that. But the point is, how did we get here? And what remedies do we have to protect the county's financial interests? And that's the conversation that I had with county council, is going through a discovery process. So we hired an architect to do design plans, right? They hired an engineer to do the survey work. If the origin of that survey work was faulty, everything that flowed from there was going to produce this bad outcome, right? So it wasn't the construction contractor's fault. He did the work to plan. That was the first question I asked. Was the work done to plan? The answer was yes. Okay, well then how did we get here? And then that's when we got back to the survey itself and everything that flowed from there. So I met with county council last week, talked with them again this morning. We're going to start this process of engaging the architect in terms of, hey, how did we get here? We have to protect the county's financial interests.
Yeah, I certainly want to I want to better understand, when we say financial interest, how broad that is.
Sure.
I mean, what hats are we wearing when we talk about that financial interest and making up those dollars? Because some of this is federal money, as you know, some of this is local money. And just imagine, if this was a private sector job and this was for a home or a housing unit, these kinds of things happen and they don't make it to this level at the dais where we're talking about them, but they have serious impacts to private sector development. And sometimes they're just normal people trying to build a home or add an addition, and these unanticipated costs come creeping up. And I'd like to see a spreadsheet of all of the overruns on this project.
Okay.
I will echo Commissioner Savas's concern on that. So that really needs to be done to the board and Gary. When I heard this, I wanted to go like this and hit my head. And I'm in agreement. How many more cost overruns on this project? And have we exhausted our contingency?
So short answer is no, and this is a separate portion of the project, right? The road development was funded by Community Development Block Grant funds through our Community Development Division. So, but look, I had the same reaction. The cost here for this change order is $63,000, but that doesn't capture the time and effort, administrative burden of our staff.
County councils.
Yeah, county council, me, all of you. So, yeah, it's.
It's just astounding on this. Can we just get this project done? Yes. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Scholl.
This change order with Civil Works Northwest, this is not going to have any bearing on the opening of a health clinic with the city of Sandy, is it?
No, because we have the temporary certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
So we were able to,
Good.
work with
Okay.
the inspectors, say, hey, well,
Good.
yeah, they understand that time is of the essence in actually opening the clinic so we can provide services to the community.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would just, one other thing, I just would say that, and again, I want to point fingers here because I don't know, but I would like to better know. I mean, if it turns out that some of the responsibility might have been the planning department, not ours, but theirs, the city in this case, and this possibly their oversight as well, or whatnot, I think we need to know that, right?
Yeah, and-
Because I'm not sure if that's the case, maybe we don't want to do much more with this particular developer or contractor or city or whatnot if we continue to have these hiccups. This project was supposed to be done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Completed. It's behind.
And one of the first calls that I made was to Dan Johnson to have a conversation about our partnership with them, right? Because they're part of the inspection team, right, that says this does or does not meet our standards. And so we worked with them. Are there any possibilities? Is there anything flexible here with regard to the work that's been done? The answer was no. We have to get this repaired. So I agree, and that partnership is really important with them to make sure we're doing this right.
I'd like to know why contingency funds aren't paying for the road department fund, because if you use road department funds for this, I understand different pots of money, but that's depleting our road department fund.
No, sorry, Chair, this is coming from community development block grant funds that are awarded by
I see, I
HUD to
misunderstood.
community development.
Okay, I misunderstood that. Thank you very much. It's just like, okay, any objections to seeing this go forward? We don't have a choice. Next.
Item 10, approval of a pharmacy services agreement to Optum Pharmacy 702 for Section 340B Pharmacy Services, anticipated revenue of $5.94 million over 5 years, funding through federal Section 340B drug program. No county general funds are involved.
The purpose of this revenue agreement is to facilitate Clackamas County Health Centers Division participation in the 340B drug discount program. Optum Pharmacy LLC has locations in Beaver Creek, Hilltop Clinic, and the new pharmacy at the Sandy Clinic. These pharmacies provide low-cost medications to health center patients and clients under the federal 340B program. This 3-year agreement will generate an estimated $1.9 million in revenue for our FQHC to support clinic operations and expansion initiatives.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, you said it would anticipated revenue of 1.9, but your paperwork says 5.9.
Sorry, it's 1.9 million per year. This is a 3-year agreement.
For 5 years.
3 years.
3 years.
So the 1.9 million for 3 years is that number that you see there.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
There was a misprint. That needs to be corrected, Tony, before we approve this. And on the consent agenda, no, not on this one, it's not. I understand what
0.9 for
Commissioner
5 years on here, but
Scholl is talking
we
about.
understand.
Got it, okay.
Because that's what the public sees is right here. They're not going to do a deep dive. Thank you very much.
We will make sure that is correct.
Yes, please fix that. We will.
Item-
That's an easy fix.
Yep. Item 11, approval of a personal services contract to Northwest Family Services for outpatient mental health and substance use disorder services. Contract maximum value is $160,000. Funding is through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
So this agreement will allow this community partner to provide outpatient mental health services for uninsured or indigent individuals on behalf of the Behavioral Health Division. Programs include health and social service navigation, youth prevention and intervention programs, outpatient alcohol and drug treatment, coalition support for drug-free communities, restorative justice, and mental health services.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you. Chair, would you now convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District?
Yes, I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
Thank you.
Gary.
You're now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board. First request is your next North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board meeting date. A week or so ago, you all agreed to Wednesday, November 30th at 6 p.m. to hold a meeting in the district. Unfortunately, some of your commission calendars were not updated, and 2 of you will not be here that date. So I'm asking permission, because I do suggest you all attend this meeting, that you bump it a week later, which would be Wednesday, December 7th at 6 p.m. in the district at the Concord School. When you meet as the Board of Commissioners later this morning, I'm also going to ask that your evening business meeting for the board, which Chair Smith has always said after the election is over, could be Thursday, December 8th, the next evening. Because in November, you're missing a week for the AOC conference. You're going to have Wednesday meetings instead of Thursday meetings for Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. And December 1st would be your first opportunity, but 2 of you will be gone as well. So we'll talk about that later on the agenda, but I wanted to have both dates in front of you as you make this decision. But I am asking you to commit right now. Are all 5 of you available on Wednesday, December 7th at 6 p.m. for a NCPRD board meeting? Could you
We'll
please?
take a moment to look at your calendars, and do not make these commitments lightly. It's very difficult for me to schedule meetings, and there's been complaints, oh, we're not listening to this, we're not doing this. Well, I'm trying to manage the meetings so I have a quorum. Any commissioners who are engaged in travel, you need to get it on the calendar immediately as you know that. Some of this national travel, I suspect, is booked out a year ahead of time. Don't come back at the last minute and expect us to do what we're doing today.
Okay.
And I'm very serious about that. Commissioners, can we make this commitment or not?
Thumbs up,
I can, yes.
thumbs up.
November 7th, November 8th for our business meeting. Can we make that commitment as well?
Yes.
It'd be December, Chair, December 7th,
December-
December 8th. Yeah.
December 8th for the business meeting is what I just asked. And that will be in person. There will be no Zoom allowed. If you have an emergency, you will not Zoom in. We will be in person because that is what the public expects. Let me be very clear on that. Okay, Gary.
Excellent, thank you. So NCPRD board meeting, Wednesday, December 7th, 6 p.m. Board of County Commissioners, evening business meeting, Thursday, December 8th, 6 p.m. Thank you very much. Next, you're still meeting as the NCPRD board. I'd like to discuss with you the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Governance Management Letter and Response. And joining me for this discussion is Jody Cochran, our County Internal Auditor, and Mike Bork, the Director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I asked Jody, the Internal Auditor, for this review back in, March or April, I don't remember. Jody will give a quick update. So Jody did a governance review of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I received her results in the end of June of this year. She gave me about 30 days for what's called a management response, where I, as the district administrator, can comment if I agree or not with her recommendations. I agreed with all of them, by the way, and I submitted my response. But I just wanted, so there's full transparency. This has been online since August, but I wanted to today actually go over it with you, not word for word, but pretty detailed on what the recommendations were, and then what my management response was, and then hear any questions or concerns or responses you have as the board. So Jody, may I ask you quickly if you'd like to give a high-level overview of your work and what you did?
Super, you bet. And good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Jody Cochran, County Internal Auditor. Very happy to be jointly presenting with Gary in his role as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Administrator, the results of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation Governance Consulting Engagement. This consulting engagement was conducted in response, like Gary said, to a formal request made by the District Administrator. Our objective was to provide an independent assessment of the district's governance structure and its impact on the district's ability to comply with the Oregon Public Records Law and Oregon Public Meetings Law, complying with the Oregon Local Contract Review Board rules, and to provide public services within the district. This engagement is important because of the many hats that each of you may wear. The 5 county commissioners collectively, you serve as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board, as well as the governing body of the county and 8 other unique county districts and units. In practice, no more than one governing body may be convened and do business at any given time. A governing body's ability and responsibility are limited to that unique entity that it's being governed. In the past, the lack of distinct processes has limited the clarity and transparency of the business being conducted by each unique entity. In recognizing these gaps, District Administrator Schmidt developed procedures and standards for public meetings that clearly captured which hat was being worn at what time. This consulting engagement provides feedback regarding the effectiveness of those procedural changes and identifies opportunities for further clarity. We found that the intentional effort is ensuring compliance with those public record laws, public record and meeting laws, and that the development of supporting tools like easier navigation in the internet or standard documentation formats would continue to remove some of those barriers around clarity and transparency. The engagement was a consulting engagement. And so that's important to recognize. And it resulted in a management letter rather than a formal audit report. So consulting engagements differ from audit and assurance engagements in the breadth and the depth of the review. So the focus of this consulting engagement is providing a high-level review of governance, risk management, and control assurances, but also is in the weeds with observations for streamlined processes and effectiveness. As a result, management letters contain recommendations that address an array of low-level risks and not just the moderate to high risk that you're normally going to see and presented in audit reports. So in this North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Management Letter, 3 recommendations for corrective action addressing local contract review board rule non-compliance were made. These reflected moderate to high risks to the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District's ability to achieve its mission. That said, no evidence of deliberate unethical or fraudulent activity was noted as a result of the engagement procedures performed. Yes.
Just one moment. I want to put this on the screen now so that you all can see it, commissioners and those watching. This is the actual report.
I would like to have folks understand the management response in the far right column is actually the administrator's management letter. And that may be confusing because we'll see what the response is to the recommendations and the observations. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jody. Go ahead.
So in addition to those 3 recommendations, 7 general recommendations identifying several continuous improvement opportunities within the district were offered for consideration. These reflected lower risk to North Clackamas Park and Recreation District's ability to achieve its mission. So while county internal audit does not require formal management responses, Chair Smith, as you identified, to our management letters, we do encourage management to take corrective actions and to consider developing strategies to implement the continuous improvement recommendations. It was very much appreciated that Administrator Schmidt not only agreed with all the recommendations, but his team also provided written responses, as you identified, and action plans for each of those recommendations made. At Gary's request, not only did we publish the management letter and our responses on our public-facing website, but we will be incorporating these recommendations into our annual review and monitoring activity. So the status of these recommendations will be reported to the Internal Audit Oversight Committee, County Administration, this board, as well as being published on our public website, thus increasing accountability and transparency. We're very grateful for the partnership and support that we received during this consulting engagement and believe that the greatest value of this particular consulting engagement is in its broad applications to all county districts, not just the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Again, really appreciate your time as the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District Board today for considering this management letter and supporting the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. This is helpful to me since I chair these different boards with a different hat, and that's why it's very important to me to know what the corrective action is. And I take this seriously, as does Gary Schmidt. And I will note that if you go through this, most situations have been remedied. For instance, several weeks ago, we came back and redoed contracts. We reapproved contracts under the board of the NCPRD. And I'm thankful that you went and found. How many years did you go back?
We started back, I want to say it was 5 years, but let me look exactly. It was in 2017 to
5 years, yes.
5 years.
To-
So that
to
is
May of
quite a long
2022.
gap of, and this particular district has gone through a lot of leadership changes and personnel changes and wearing of different hats. So I think this amount of time that you did was very important in the discovery of what we found. We have Commissioner Savas in the queue. Would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I am not fully prepared to discuss all the things I would like to talk about here, and I really feel that this ought to be done in the, with some greater context. And I appreciate the work that staff's done, the auditor's office and so forth. And in my opinion is that we've scratched the surface and you've done that well. You went a little bit deeper than I thought, and I appreciate that. So but there's a lot more to be done here. And it's not necessarily about, per se, about going back 5 years or 10 years or more, but I have two concerns. Number one, what we're not talking about here today. And secondly, the loss of income or the loss of revenue the district's experienced as a result of this, and how that has impacted the constituents, mostly the underserved constituents of the district. So there have been a number of things, neither of which you're responsible for because this predates your employment here, as far as Mike in particular, as far as the director. But Mike, I have a question for you. Do you have a recommendation of your own that you would like to see?
Regarding what, Commissioner?
Regarding changes or advancing the interest of the district in its autonomy?
I'm happy to answer that.
I would defer to the county administrator, yeah. I'm not sure what you're asking.
May I answer that?
Sure.
My opinion and my recommendation, which I have already talked to you individually, but I'll say this publicly, I think that you should change your governance structure so that this district is governed by an independently elected members of the district who are not the county commissioners. We are the only parks district in the entire state of Oregon that is governed by the Board of County Commissioners. All the rest have a separate governing body. That's a vote of the people. They would have to approve that.
Yeah, well, where I was going with this, and I'll just be more clear, and this is why, again, I'm not really fully prepared to make my case here, but I've asked for something like this for a long time. I have asked for a number of things. I've asked for independent counsel for the district years ago, and not that far ago. I mean, for several opportunities, I've asked for independent counsel for the districts to represent them individually. I argue, and I'm not disparaging any of our legal counsel staff, but I argue that there's a conflict of interest. And I think it's played out in this district and again has impacted negatively the constituents of this district, especially the underserved. I want to have that discussion about how we can better have autonomy. Mike, where do you consider the headquarters, your offices for NCPRD today?
Currently, there is no official headquarters until our conditional use permit is approved through the planning department.
Okay. We don't have legal counsel here today, but I believe it's still a requirement to post on the door of the offices the meeting here today. And my question was, which door was it posted on?
I'm not sure that we physically post meetings anymore at any of
If
our
I can
physical.
interject, I have a county council light on my board, but there's no county council over there. It's Stevens Light. How did that come on?
I don't know. But Kathy, do you want to speak to this?
Kathleen, I don't think you were able to do that telepathically, if I'm not, so I have this light on for county council, and I don't, and I would just, I don't know, do you want to come and address any of these issues or not?
I'm happy to.
Come on up, Kathy, please.
Thank you very much.
So actually, no, we do not physically post a flyer anywhere for any board meeting publicly. We do this electronically and email and such.
And this meeting was posted on the NCPRD website.
Do you understand the question before you?
No, if you could repeat it, thank you.
Yeah, what is the question for county council? Commissioner Savas?
I didn't ask county council for a question.
Right.
My question was, was it posted on a door, and where are the offices, and which doors was it posted on for the ORS public meeting notice? Because again, people don't know where to go. And we don't have the meetings consistently. Our people don't know about it consistently. Not all people have access to internet. So this is a challenge. So that's why it's a requirement. And I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I just was not prepared for this today.
Commissioner Savas, we have until 11:30 on this topic today. You have ample opportunity to address whatever you need to address here today regarding this management letter, how this was conducted, or the future management of NCPRD. So if you would like to speak to this, I'm more than willing to let you have the opportunity to do so.
Well, maybe that helps legal counsel here maybe answer the question then.
What was the question? Could you pose that again, please?
Well, the meeting was advertised. It was posted digitally. And I think your question is, was it posted physically? It sounds like it was not. That's not a requirement.
Okay. I will leave it there for now. I don't want to get into again,
Well, if any commissioner has concerns about the management of this and the future of this going forward, today, right now, is your opportunity to voice this, because I'm inclined not to revisit this again until next year, because we don't have time on the calendar. So don't sit here and think, oh, I'm going to go and get us another meeting. It won't be happening this year until we meet on December 7th at 6 p.m. So if you have anything that you want discussed or learned about, now is the time. I can't say that enough. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes, Ms. Cochran, on your 1 August audit letter, one of your observations is the $471,000 disbursement of NCPRD funds to a OPSIS contract, which NCPRD was not a member of on that contract. Can you tell the board if that disbursement was legitimate and without any potential for inappropriate payment of funds? And two, can this board understand that type of disbursement of funds without a contract will not happen in the future?
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. I appreciate the question. So couple aspects to that. The first, in looking at the contracting, looking at the payments, I did not do a in-depth review of the legitimate expenditure and processes surrounding that. That said, nothing in my review indicated that those payments were inappropriate. What I did notice was that those payments were made on a contract, that the initial contract did not come before this board. It came before the Board of County Commissioners. It was discussed as an NCPRD contract. It was simply approved originally in a different governing body venue. This governing body actually did approve an amendment to that contract, however, wasn't the original contract that was actually being approved. So there is intent there. It was just a logistical, administrative correction that needed to take place. So as far as that type of thing going forward, I think the adjustments that have already been made and had been in place for the subsequent years have prevented those types of situations occurring again. I don't know if
No, I think that covers it. And the dollar amount that was talked about in the observation was specifically that, just the dollar amounts, and it was an observation. The overall recommendation of that number 3 is to establish that intergovernmental agreement between NCPRD and the county for the library project. That was almost, I don't want to say secondary information, but it was just supplemental or supporting.
I see, okay, I understand.
Absolutely. If I might add a little bit as well, that's a great example of the detail and kind of in the weeds, extra information that a management letter as a result of a consulting project is providing, really to kind of help guide those subsequent actions and activities that management may need to implement some of those.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. So Gary, what would be the process to get this referred out to the voters to make NCPRD an independently elected board? I know in just my conversations with leaders in the area, there seems to be a lot of support for this.
Simply, as a governing body, you vote, you approve putting it on the ballot for the voters to decide, and we clearly want to do some outreach to educate and inform the voters before that happened, to kind of gauge the community, how they're feeling about it, but simply you put it on the ballot. So you can do that as soon as or late as you wish. But I would, and Mike and I have talked, we would recommend, let's do a little outreach first, instead of just putting it on the ballot, so we can make sure it will be effectively as successful. Mike has started that process at my request, just preliminary, getting some contractors to look at that feasibility work and then bring that back to you for you to make a decision. But you can do that as soon as next calendar year if you wish to do that.
Okay, so what would be our formal process? Could we give a head nod today in supporting what you're already putting in place so that we could be potentially ready to put something on the ballot in May?
I think May's a little early, but that's my opinion. But yes, I feel you've already given the head nod, but if you want to do that again, yes, you could do that.
All right.
I'm all for it, and then we need to look at the calendar, depending on how fast this work needs to be done. We don't know what it's going to take, but I'm ready. Commissioner, other commissioners as well? Is there any objection? Let me pose the question. Is there any?
Frankly, it's a timing issue, Chair, that's practical for the district based on a number of things that are happening, which is a long discussion. That's why, again, I don't want to interfere with the purpose of the meeting here today, but the fact that it's limited here, and this is a lofty discussion. Mike and I have spent hours, I think, collectively talking about how to move the district and the timing and how to do that and how to deliver on some promises and projects so we can get support so the voters will say yes. And I don't think that we can do that in just a few months.
I don't know what those promises are. I think if promises have been made individually by any commission or even a past commission, or this current commission, I don't see how we can be held to that. There were promises, unless it was an absolute formal vote. That needs to be reviewed, Mike and Gary, because I don't know what those are. And, but we do have to make a decision on this. I don't think we're ever going to resolve every single innuendo, insight, accusation that comes forward, and that's not the intent of this. Commissioner Savas, you still have your light on?
I just turned it on, yes.
You want to speak again?
Yeah, if, Chair, you don't want to talk about this till next year, then I'm going to take at least the opportunity to
No,
expand.
I actually said the opposite. I said we have until 11:30 today for any commissioner to voice any concern they have on this, on the topic of NCPRD. So go ahead. I never said I didn't want to talk about anything. I want to talk about everything.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to be problematic here. I'm just trying to say that I think you said that we're not going to talk about it. What we do here today, we do here today, and after that, we don't talk about it until next year.
Well, we have a half hour, Commissioner Savas.
I understand
You have
that.
the floor for a half hour if you need it. There's a problem with the calendar. I said the calendar, do not misrepresent what I say. You have been digging this up for as long as you've been a commissioner. You have an opportunity. I think you know what you want to address. You have until 11:30 to do it.
I move that the district hire independent legal counsel.
A motion is on the table. Do I hear a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Commissioner Schrader, you're in the queue.
So as I'm trying to listen and think this through, it's really important we kind of just be, let's just bring it down a notch or two. Here's my question. When you say something like promises made, what that says to me, okay, I'm trying to clarify here, is we need to look at the SIP. Am I correct? I remember over the years, we always had presentations on what the projects that were in the queue that we were going to try and do with the resources, and that we would get reports on that. So I'm assuming that the promises are probably projects that people had expected in the unincorporated urban area that haven't happened yet. And that's kind of what we're trying to get at. So I would suggest that let's take some, maybe not right now, but I'd be willing to look at the SIP and try and understand where those are, because, okay, that's a question that we should ask. Because we all know that the feeling with this whole district has been all along that we have an underserved area, and they have been kind of having their dollars funneled to other areas, and they have felt for a long time that has been unfair. And so somehow we've been trying to rectify that, and I think that's been the root of the whole problem. So, Mike, could we get a look at I don't remember the last time we actually did, maybe it's just because my memory's faulty, but when was the last time we actually looked at the construction projects that we had online?
Well, at least not in the last 14 months, I can tell you, because that's how long I've been here.
Yeah, so that's
We just
part of
gave
it.
the District Advisory Committee an overview report of the current capital projects.
Okay.
And I think that would be a very appropriate, similar presentation for your December meeting.
Okay.
It's not a very long presentation, but specifically to cover what we've got on the queue for this current fiscal year, and then kind of the plans for the systems plan, which will include a whole newly revised capital improvement plan to follow.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, because I guess what I want to say, guys, okay, mistakes were made, but we're at a point in time, and we either can kind of keep revisiting the mistakes were made, or we can really start looking at the SIP and all of that and get this straightened out and really focus on trying to make sure people are getting the projects and the services that they want. So for me, it's kind of like, okay, how do we move, let's move it forward, and I think that takes care of the promises piece in a way. But Paul, I don't know what you think about that or what the rest of my colleagues think about it, but it seems a sensible way for me to.
I think I just said that we need to look at what the promises were made, if there are any formal votes taken, and what that all entails. And I think Mike and Gary, or whomever wants to be engaged in this, can go ahead and prepare a document for us on that. Was there any formal votes taken in the last commission with the other leadership that these projects would be completed? Have there just been hollow promises given at meetings? I don't know about that either. I know that this district has a huge wish list, and I'm not even sure what that wish list is because I've not seen anything in writing either. So it's really hard for us to quantify what needs to be done and what does not need to be done with this Parks District. It's very complicated. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I didn't come here today to talk about projects. We did see the projects in the budget earlier this year when we approved the budget. The capital projects are listed. They're listed every year. I'm not critical of that, but the title of this meeting is District Governance, and that's in the management-led and response. That's what I want to bring up and talk about. But if we don't have, frankly, I think this is a big issue. If we don't have that independent view and that independent legal counsel to direct the district, then I'm afraid, and I've been asking, I've been denied several times, even independent counsel to just do a review to expose here what I was told I was wrong. For years, I was told I was wrong. This letter, changes that, obviously, and proves that not only was I right, but it's not a point, it's not about me. It's about the district, about the autonomy and the health and the governance of the district. And we are not, again, I'm not blaming anyone, but in order to take the right steps, I think having that professional guidance would be valuable.
Well, you made a motion, and it died for lack of a second, so 4 other commissioners are in disagreement with that at the moment. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I just want to clarify my understanding and ask Kathleen to tell me if I'm right or wrong. But we are the governing body for Library District and the West and the extensions. I mean, we are the governing body. And it's been my experience that if ever county council thinks there's a conflict, which sometimes could potentially happen with our, with the sheriff's office, if we think that we need outside counsel, county council comes to us and lets us know about it because they have an ethical obligation if they have a conflict to alert us, and then we would look at outside counsel. Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay. So I have complete confidence in our county counsel's office and with the advice that they give us. And so I don't see a need to expend additional resources that would be much more costly, I think, to the members of the district for outside counsel when we have really excellent quality legal support to us in whatever role we are in.
Have you finished, Commissioner
Yes,
Fisher?
thank you.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, Mike, appreciate really all the changes, and I know this is a difficult conversation. I'm not being, difficult. We're not directing any of this towards you. You and I have talked about actually this legal counsel issue. Can you just tell us on behalf of the district, as a director of the district, what your preference is? Do you think legal counsel would be, independent legal counsel for you in the district would be something you'd like to see?
It's been my intent to try and talk to Stephen Madcore about this issue because this is my first situation where I've had, this situation. And when and what I'm talking specifically, not broadly, generally about the district, specifically with the issue of an IGA between NCPRD, who owns the land and the building and everything around there on the Concord property, and the county, who is intending to build a multi-million-dollar facility, and there's an IGA needed. I know that the conflict that appears there, or potential conflict, is that somebody from county council and somebody from county council are going to be the two legal counsels that are essentially negotiating the terms of the intergovernmental agreement. And that in itself, from somebody looking from the outside, I think that that's a little strange, but that's the situation that we're in with us being a 451 district to Clackamas County.
And as has been pointed out, our governance structure is different than any other in the state, and you've acknowledged that. And I think until that changes, then the new district obviously will hire independent counsel.
Exactly.
But at this point, I think it's most cost-effective, and this district is not rich. I mean, if you have to go on the open market and pay for an attorney at $600, $700, $800 an hour, where our attorneys are under $200 an hour, and we have 10 of them. You can pick 2 attorneys out of our current county counsel's office. One can represent the library district, and one can represent NCPRD, and I recommend that that's how it's done. Mr. Savas.
Yeah, I have significant history with districts, being elected to them in the past and serving as a representative both in the state and both in the western region, representing special districts. And I've had a lot of discussions and with other attorneys on a number of things that work for districts. Typically, a district counsel for a district does not work full-time. They only work for the times and hours charged. They're not a full-time, 40 hours a week kind of a job. If they are, there's something really wrong going on. But it's a modest cost, and frankly, in relationship to the dollars that were lost, and I think as much as the district's been disadvantaged, I think it's not only, it's worth every penny and then some. We've experienced significant loss, frankly, because of this particular issue. That concludes my comments at the moment.
Commissioners, do we have any other comments, directions moving forward? We have ample time to discuss anything you want to on this particular topic. And it's not my intent to stifle any conversation or any opinion on this going forward. I have stated my opinions, as all commissioners have stated their opinions equally on this topic. Hearing none, Gary, what's next?
Okay, well, thank you, Jody and Mike and Kathleen and commissioners on this item. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the North Clackamas County Parks and Recreation District and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, I'd like to talk about your evening business meeting, and following what you just discussed, to make sure you're talking about it with the right hat on, I'd like to revisit the conversation you already talked about. Your next evening business meeting as the Board of County Commissioners will be Thursday, December 8th at 6 p.m. Remember, as the NCPRD Board, you just discussed, you'll have the NCPRD Board meeting Wednesday, December 7th. So as the County Commissioners now, do you agree that Thursday, December 8th will be your evening business meeting of the Board of County Commissioners? All good, Commissioners?
And we have 2 evening meetings back-to-back. So we're
Back-to-back,
just kind of
okay.
doing double duty and making adjustments in our schedules if that is difficult for some of us.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, your your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, October 13th, that's tomorrow, 10 a.m. You have all the consent agenda items you approved today to go on the agenda. That is your agenda for tomorrow. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know. The final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communication, who wants to speak first? Commissioner Savas, you need to leave early. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I sent an email to you all last evening or late yesterday regarding some claims made regarding supportive housing services. And as you may recall, about a year ago, there was a mistaken, I won't say a rumor, it's more than a rumor, but a lot of messaging and emails going around circulating that Clackamas County cut $8+ million in supportive housing services. And we were negotiating with Metro at the time, and our staff at the time came forward after the negotiations were done and after the contracts with Metro were signed, and we were able, at the liberty and the advice of legal counsel, not to speak about it until that time. Staff came and to the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee and others, and basically was able to validate that that was not true. And there's been an article, not an article, but some things that are listed in public documents, including the Clackamas Review, and even on Monday night, one of my colleagues made the statement that everything that was said prior by a particular individual was true. And in that comment, in that expansion of that comment, was a $40 million that were not spent that we had voted no on. Whether it's 40 million or it's 40.7 or it's 44, don't know what it is, but I've politely, courteously gave Commissioner Fisher an opportunity to reply. I would like to have like to know what that is, because people are asking questions since that evening and actually prior, and even yesterday. I keep on getting the question, where did we cut, or where did we not spend, or where did we deny, or whatever this is, because it's been framed up in a lot of different ways where somehow we, the public or the people that are homeless did not have access to $40 million because of a decision we made. $40 million of services.
Paul, when did this occur?
Which?
The meeting you're referencing? Or
Well,
was
it's in the paper, first of all. There was an op-ed that came out last week, or a letter to the editor. It's in a particular person's voter's pamphlet statement. It was assured by and said, I don't know if the meeting was taped. Hopefully it was.
And where was it?
Monday night at a debate, there was a public comments were made, and it was about this county and our services. So I think there's relevance to it, in the fact that it was stated that we, by one of us, that we in the board and so on. So I just want to put that out there. I'm getting the questions, and I would certainly like to be able to answer those.
And do you know if this was a Zoom recording, or was it taped or anything?
I don't think it was a Zoom. No, it was not a Zoom. It was a live meeting.
Oh, it was live and not recorded.
Correct.
Commissioner Scholl, did you have a question or comment?
No, not on that issue.
All righty.
I just like to just politely ask Commissioner Fisher if she can expand on that and tell us when or what that's all about.
Commissioner Savas, I'm happy to talk with you and discuss. I don't know that we want to take the time to rehash history, but it's not, everybody understands that's on this board that this county chose not to spend homeless or allocate homeless services dollars until the dollars were received. That was a decision of the majority of this board. And what we worked hard to do was to make sure there wasn't any harm done for the folks that were housed in our transitional motel hotel shelter. We allocated resources, we allocated COVID relief dollars, FEMA dollars, we allocated ARPA dollars. We put together resources to get the people that were in our hotel motels stably housed. I think Clackamas County, given the decision of the majority of this board, did a great job. Our staff were heroic.
What day was that decision?
Okay, Commissioner Savas, I'm on the floor right now. I think our staff was heroic in building the infrastructure and being ready for when the dollars did come in the last quarter of the fiscal year from Metro. Absolutely heroic. We stably housed 170 individuals in the matter, and if Vahid was here, I could ask him specifically, but it was about a couple months. I'm looking to Gary to see if he can shake his head. He's sort of shaking his head. It might have been the last 3 months within that time frame. And then additionally, in listening to and going to the Homeless Services Coalition of Clackamas County and hearing from Father's Heart, which is one of our providers that does the outreach to connect with people, we are stably housing people with those dollars. I am so proud of Clackamas County for building.
Point of order.
Just one other piece.
I had the floor. I had the floor.
You asked.
I asked a question. and
I
I'm
will
not getting
adjourn
an
the
answer.
meeting if we don't get under control. Commissioner Savas, you asked Commissioner Fisher a
I asked a
question.
clear question.
She is answering that. I'm going to allow for a rebuttal. But Commissioner, finish your statement, and then Commissioner Savas will have a turn.
Thank you. I just can't miss the opportunity to say I'm so proud of our staff for building the bones of the structure so that we can deliver services. And I'm proud of the way that Clackamas County has proceeded in this. It's part of the public record that we issued a statement early on in this process, after our initial budget meeting, that we were all in support of providing services to those who are unsheltered. It was a very thoughtful statement, and it really defined the dedication and commitment of everybody sitting at this dais. And then shortly after that, the procurement process that was put out in the community was pulled back because of the decision of this board to not allow the dollars necessary. At that moment, I did reverse my vote because I was more in support of addressing the crisis for what it was and making sure we did everything we could. That being said, when this board makes a decision, we deal with it, we work with it. And in that situation, I think this board made amazing lemonade out of some lemons in balancing all the political issues and the realities of the program. And at the end of the day, we are well positioned to serve the people of Clackamas County, and I am very proud of the work that we have done.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Savas, you're up, and we have
That's okay.
all three
Yeah,
commissioners want to say
I have to
something.
leave in a few minutes. I won't belabor this any longer. I am simply asking for the $40 million decision or whatever it may be. I remember that, all those points vividly. I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. However, part of what you said is just woefully lacking context and didn't reflect very well Monday evening when you said you were outvoted, and were outvoted often on this issue. And I don't recall $40.7 million. I don't recall 44 at that time whatsoever. And the decision to roll back the RFP by our staff was a technicality. We didn't vote to tell staff to roll the RFP back. It was because the funds were uncertain and unaware. We borrowed, we allotted $5 million at first. I sought a loan from Metro. We got it. Thank you, colleagues, for approving that. A second loan for another $5 million for a total of 10. We were building our infrastructure. Our staff were doing fantastic work. I agree. But we all knew we had to ramp up these services, and we were also in a COVID environment, so we had short of staff. No fault of staff. But of all the money allotted, trying to keep $10 million committed to keep people in their homes, which most of that money went. $10 million committed that, plus all the other services. We had approximately $24 million available between the 10 and the 14 and the loans, and staff could spend all of it they could, and they still did not use the 10 million that they had available. Not their fault. But the fact that we didn't completely expend the 10 doesn't matter if it was 100 million available if we didn't have the resources to do it. So I think not only is the $40 million statement false, unless proven otherwise, but it's terribly misleading. And it doesn't reflect well on this board, our staff, and the commission when it's out there publicly that we cut or did not spend or did not roll out and deliberately held back $40 million of services to people in need. That's a disparaging comment, doesn't reflect well on any of us.
And we have Commissioner Schrader in the queue. Any commissioner wants to speak, I suggest you turn on your light. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Okay, so we are doing it, we're rolling it out. We didn't do it the way the advocates had asked us to do it. It became a political football where the advocates were talking to us, wanting to spend money that we didn't have in our coffers yet. We said we can't operate that way. We said, we can borrow so much. And quite frankly, we did need to get the infrastructure internally pulled together because we are integrating the housing authority that does the sticks and bricks with the social service delivery system. So there was all of this going on. And one of the things we did, which I think all of the people in this county would agree with, is that instead of borrowing the money, what we did very diligently with our finance person is we basically tracked the dollars that were coming in because we felt that we needed to be very sure of the numbers. We were getting numbers from advocacy groups, we were getting numbers from Metro, we were all throwing numbers. Oh, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Well, we gotta worry, okay? Because we can't, it was from my perspective, it was an issue of, the risk. Now, it's turned out, thank you, God, and whatever entity is up there watching over us who do homeless issues, is that, yes, the way the tax structure works, the money's in. And now we're fully implementing it. But to say that we wouldn't implement 40 million that we didn't have is kind of ridiculous. And it really does smack, I gotta tell you, political nonsense. And I wish that we could just all be calm about this. And that when we turn houselessness and poor people into political pawns so we can feel good about it, that's just plain wrong. And frankly, that's kind of, I think, part of this is. I think there's a lot of ego involved with other folks, and they're probably pretty mad at me, but I don't care. I'm just going to call it how it is. And yeah, we are rolling it out, but we're doing it the Oregon way and the Clackamas County way. And I, for one, everybody knows me. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm all relational as opposed to contractual and transactional. I figure they were trying to make this transactional. I'm not going to go there. Poor people aren't pawns for us to, we have to do it because it just makes us, we're so virtuous. Come on, get over ourselves. We do it because it's a job and it's the right thing to do. And maybe it's okay to feel virtuous, but it's also, there's no humility or humbleness with any of this. That's what you should be doing with the job. And I think people need to trust us and keep this out of the political campaign realm, because part of the issue I had with it all along, it was more like a campaign rather than a community building exercise. And quite frankly, a community building exercise is what we should all be doing from the ground up to help our homeless population, not doing political, mudslinging over this. And so I take issue with it. I think we all just ought to let it go now. I think we've said what we've said. I will continue with this message. And I think we did everything we could, and we did it the right way for Clackamas County. And I think anybody that says anything else or puts misinformation out there needs to be corrected. So, and if the advocates are angry about that, they can call me anytime. And you guys know who you are. And you also know I've been working with many of these folks for years and was one of the first people in this county to look at, and I'm going to virtue signal here again, that knew that in our rural areas we have significant issues, particularly with our Hispanic community with housing. I lived it. So, just get it out there. So I don't want to make this personal, but okay, can we call it good? Folks, I'm sorry.
We have two other commissioners in the queue. Commissioner Schrader, I appreciate your comments. We have Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, again, I brought this forward because the public's asking. I also received an email. I get people asking me, again, this is not a political issue, in my opinion. This is a humane issue. This is a human issue, right? We've done everything. Commissioner Schrader, thank you for working with us and the staff on trying to funnel or assemble the monies to get this going. We put our heart and soul into doing everything we could to keep people housed, to get the services out, staff's doing everything they can to hire. There's still buildings, they still haven't hired everyone they need to hire. So there's still work to be done. But to just misinform the public that we're not doing our job or we don't care about people is dead wrong. So I asked the administrator, really, for the sake of our staff and the public and answering these questions, can we just declare this fault? How do we proceed? I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't have any time. I have to leave. But I think we need to come up with a public statement or a correction that this is not true, whatnot. And it should not, again, if we stay out there, that makes us all look bad. And I want to make sure that we are standing behind our employees. We're standing behind the purpose and the citizens of this county to try to do the right thing. And to have it characterized otherwise is frankly just dishonest.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Fisher, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Smith. I was just Googling up because I wasn't sure what Commissioner Savas was talking about the $40 million. But apparently, Clackamas County, we got $44.6 million from the homeless services measure, and we did not spend, we spent 7% of those dollars at the very last end of the fiscal year, because this board did decide to not spend money before it had it, which is a sound policy decision. And we did build infrastructure. The story that I so want to be told is the good that we did, the anticipation of the dollars and the systems building, the infrastructure, and all of that really good work. And I will stand by that. I will fight for Clackamas County along with my fellow commissioners that we do it the Clackamas-centric way. It may rub other people wrong, but we will continue to do it. And I still want to make sure that we do honor and appreciate our staff.
Commissioner Scholl, you had your light on at one time. Do you wish to speak?
Well, Chair Smith, all I want to say on this is that the people of Clackamas County have elected the members of this board to make decisions on behalf of the people of the county, and one of those areas is the issue of homelessness. In my brief 20 months here as a member of the board, I believe that we have been judicious and cautious in the way we have handled money. We have been concerned about ensuring that that money goes down to make the biggest impact to help homeless people. We have had some pressure from some of the nonprofits last year when the money didn't seem to be flowing to their satisfaction. But I believe that this board has been very professional, very concerned, and we have worked with the staff. We've been considerate of the abilities of the staff who are working hard to create safety off the street projects, and those take time. And so I think as if I was a member of the county looking at this issue this morning, I'd be pretty happy about the progress we're making. My concern as a commissioner is that every single dollar that goes through here, approved by the board, to be used to alleviate the issue, the hardship, the heartbreak of homelessness, that every penny goes to actually alleviate that problem in the most efficient manner possible. And so I think, again, this board, this staff, this county is doing a good job with this issue. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm going to add a concluding statement here, and then we are going to adjourn, and there will be no rebuttal from what I say. I appreciate what was said today. Many issues have been brought to light. I have asked staff, mainly my policy advisor, Emily Klepper, to write down and quantify for us all the projects. And I know of 3 large construction projects coming online, but it takes a long time to do that. We are developing infrastructure. I want to know how many homeless beds and/or services we have offered since the supported housing services measure was passed and we started receiving money. We need to quantify what we have done. I've heard many statements today, and whereas Commissioner Fisher, you did say that we are doing a good job. However, did you say that Monday night? I suspect that you had a different take on your opinions on Monday night, because after all, you have a contingency that you answer to, and we all have different contingencies. And like my colleague, Commissioner Schrader, if there was misinformation, it does need to be corrected. I wasn't there. I have heard from people like Commissioner Savas, and it's disconcerting if any one commissioner misrepresents a vote or action or opinion of all commissioners. That is wrong. No further business before this commission. We are adjourned.